Hello students, let's read the problem. And it says, given the equation y equals 4/3 x minus 8, find algebraically x-intercept, y-intercept, slope, and 0. So what does it mean by algebraically? Well, it means that they don't want you to graph it, which is something that we maybe did earlier. Now they want you to algebraically do it, which means using formulas and things like that. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to write down the equation that is given to me. And the equation is y equals 4/3 x minus 8. The first thing that I need to find is the x-intercept. Let's see if we remember something about the x-intercept. X-intercept has a ordered pair, which is a coordinate, with, of course, an x value and a y value. What's very important for you to remember about this point is that in the x-intercept, y, the y coordinate, will always be a 0. Always. So we can use that to replace it on my equation of the line, which is slope-intercept form. So I'm going to replace y with a 0. I'm going to continue my problem of 4/3 x minus 8. And what I'm going to do next is, algebraically, I'm going to leave x by itself, which means that will give me the coordinates for the x on my x-intercept. So next thing that I need to do is I'm going to add 8 on both sides. Okay, you know what? Let me put a label over here. This is for me to find the x-intercept. Okay, and for the x-intercept, I know that there's such a number that y will be 0 and x will be whatever I find when I finish my problem. So 0 plus 8, it's 8. And 4/3 of x stays like that. And 8 and minus 8 cancels out. Okay? How do I get rid of the 4/3 or 4/3? That's a fraction. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if you remember, but what you do to get rid of the fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal of that. So I'm going to multiply by 3/4. Okay, let's continue with the problem. So this is going to cancel, of course, and I ended up with x. If you want to multiply fractions, just a reminder, I know you have a calculator. We can write a 1 under the 8. We multiply 3 times 8 is 24, and 4 times 1 is 4, and x will be the answer for dividing 24 divided by 4, which is 6. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to write down 6 for the x coordinate. So the x-intercept is going to be 6 and 0. Next, I need to find the y-intercept. We can do pretty much what I did with the x-intercept, but I'm hoping that you know that the y-intercept can be easily identified if you write your equation with the slope-intercept form right below that. So let's see if we can do that. So this will be for the y-intercept. Let me highlight that so that we don't get confused with the other one. And the y-intercept, I'm going to rewrite my equation. Y equals 4/3 of x minus 8. And right below that, I'm going to write down my slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And if you remember that b is your y-intercept. Therefore, my y-intercept is -8. But since I want to write it down as a coordinate, then what do I know about the y-intercept? If you remember the y-intercept, it's where your point actually touches the y-axis. Therefore, that -8 needs to be where the y coordinate is, and the x will be at 0. So now I know that x and y-intercept have something similar. They both have a 0 on the coordinates, right? So be careful with that. We can go ahead and move to the slope. And slope, I'm going to come back to the equation that we did earlier. Slope is m. Let me go ahead and highlight this one for the y-intercept. The slope is the coefficient or the number next to the x. This is my slope. So my answer for that will be 4/3 or 4/3. And the 0, if you remember what we talked about earlier about the 0, it was that there's a relationship between the 0 and the x-intercept. The only difference is that the x-intercept, I'm writing it with a coordinate, 6 and 0. The 0 will be just the x value by itself, which means x will be equals to 6. Okay, now what I want to do is I'm going to work out my problem for the y-intercept, replacing my value for x with a 0 and work out my equation to see if I get a -8. So I'm going to write down y equals 4/3 x minus 8. I'm not going to replace the y because I do not know the value for that, but I do know that x has a 0. Work it out, and 4/3 times 0, it's 0, so I don't need to write it down. And what is the only thing that is left? -8. So when x is 0, y is -8, which is the same thing that we said earlier about the y-intercept. So this is the way you can check algebraically if that's my answer or not. Okay, let me go ahead and highlight this one so that we have a better picture of all of that. And my 0 was my x-intercept, but only the x value.